I should like to begin today with a moral injury. Somewhere on this earth there walks a grown man, a husband, a homeowner, a person who pays his taxes and parks his car, and feels, presumably, the full range of human dignity. And yet, should that man wish to find his own face, he need only open the nearest screen, type 2 words, and behold himself attached, several billion times over, to every disaster the species has ever conceived. He is the documented face of failure. He did not consent, and he was, by most credible accounts, paid almost nothing. Our subject is a schoolboy of the American Midwest, photographed at the age of 14 in the most ordinary ritual the modern adolescent endures, the annual portrait. From that single, unremarkable smile, the network manufactured an entire deity of misfortune. He has been convicted of crimes he never committed. He has died. On screen, 10,000 absurd deaths. He has been blamed, in symbolic form, for plagues, divorces, market crashes, and at least one alleged extinction event. And he accomplished all of this, dear viewer, while seated motionless on a stool, doing nothing whatsoever, but smiling at a camera he had no reason to fear. Let us begin, as all proper inquiries must, with the human article. The subject is one Kyle Craven, a resident of the state of Ohio, and this detail will matter enormously. A self-described mischief, maker of considerable local renown. He was not, by his own cheerful admission, a model pupil. He was the sort of boy who is escorted from assemblies, the sort who is known to the office staff by his first name and his sins. In the year 2006, the annual photograph was scheduled, as it is everywhere scheduled, with bureaucratic indifference to the readiness of the child. And young Master Craven, in a stroke of intent that he would spend the next decade explaining, resolved to sabotage it. He had, the day prior, shaved his own head into a deliberate disaster, and so, to mask the crime, he arrived wearing a borrowed plaid sweater, vest, and a smile he engineered entirely on purpose. He drew his lips back over a full architecture of orthodontic metal. He widened his eyes to their absurd maximum, and he produced, on command, the single most ruinous facial expression in the recorded history of school photography. The result is, on first encounter, almost physically arresting. You know the one. The eyes are too wide, the grin too broad, the braces too plentiful, the freckles too earnest, the sweater best too sincere. It is the face of a boy who is convinced he has gotten away with something, photographed at the precise instant, before the universe informs him that he has not. And here is the cruelty of it. The expression reads, to every human who beholds it, as the face of a person to whom bad things are about to happen. It is, in short, one of the most legible portraits of impending doom ever captured on an entirely uninjured subject. For some 6 years, the photograph behaved itself. It existed, as such photographs do, in the obscurity of a yearbook and the private archives of a small circle of friends. This is, once again, a useful reminder that an image possesses no virality of its own. Virality is a chemical reaction. It requires a catalyst. The catalyst, by the best reconstructions available to us, arrived in the early weeks of 2012 when a friend of the subject, a man of mischievous instinct equal to Craven's own, took the photograph, affixed to it a single caption, and submitted it to a vast and merciless image board frequented by connoisseurs of the absurd. The caption obeyed a rigid and unforgiving formula. A line of text across the top would establish a perfectly ordinary, even hopeful, human ambition. A line of text across the bottom would then annihilate that ambition in the most catastrophic manner the author could devise. The very first of these captions, by tradition, concerned a romantic milestone of an intimate nature, resolved by the abrupt and humiliating arrival of a parent. I shall spare the chamber the particulars, but the structure, once witnessed, is impossible to unsee. Takes a driving test, passes, gets into the car, it is on fire, tries to break up a fight, gets shot by the cardboard cutout. Each one, a tiny tragedy in 2 acts, performed in front of a face so eternally, idiotically hopeful that the cruelty becomes, against all decency, hilarious. What, precisely, is the joke? One must take the question seriously because the longevity of the artifact depends entirely upon its answer. The joke, I would submit, operates on 3 simultaneous registers. First, there is the doctrine of dramatic irony, perfected, a face frozen in total, unwarranted confidence, married eternally to outcomes of total, undeserved ruin. Second, there's the principle of universal substitution. The captions may be filled with any catastrophe whatsoever, which renders the format an empty vessel into which the entire planet may pour its private dreads. Third, and most insidious, there is the mechanism of relief. We laugh because the disaster, however baroque, is happening to him, and emphatically not to us. To the seasoned student of internet culture, this is in fact a piece of comedic engineering of frightening efficiency. It is, simultaneously, a portrait of a specific boy, a shrine to the abstract concept of failure, and a confession booth in which the viewer privately absolves his own anxieties by displacing them onto a stranger. It is, in the language of the moral philosophers, Schadenfreude rendered as a reusable template, and it remains instantly intelligible to a person who has never heard that word in his life. We arrive now at the chapter that the internet, in its boundless capacity for forgetting, has most thoroughly suppressed. For here is the uncomfortable truth. A face that has laughed at several billion times is, in the cold arithmetic of attention, an asset of staggering value. And the question of who, precisely, was permitted to harvest that value is the dark engine beneath this entire saga. The image migrated, within months, from the boards to the open marketplace. It appeared upon shirts, upon mugs, upon greeting cards, upon the cheap printed ephemera of 1,000 unlicensed vendors. By the most generous estimates whispered in the years since, the total commerce conducted upon the back of that single grin reached into the many millions. A torrent of revenue flowing past, around, and over the boy himself. He held, after all, no patent on his own face. The law of the period had simply never imagined that a child's portrait could become a globally traded commodity overnight. The subject and his collaborator did attempt, to their credit, to seize some fraction of the flood. They licensed the likeness where they could. They struck arrangements with a handful of advertisers bold enough to court the world's most unlucky face. On one celebrated occasion, the grin was enlisted to sell a product during the most expensive advertising window the nation possesses. And yet, dear viewer, weigh the scale of it. A face seen, by conservative reckoning, more times than the portrait of any monarch in history, and the human attached to it collected by his own rueful telling, a sum that would scarcely embarrass a mid-level functionary. There were, inevitably, the parasites, strangers who registered the trade names, vendors who printed by the pallet and vanished, opportunists who built small fortunes upon a grin to which they possessed no earthly claim, and who slept, one assumes, perfectly soundly. It is the oldest story the marketplace knows, merely accelerated to the speed of light. The value is created by one, and harvested by the many who arrived with a printing contract and no conscience. As with every genuine mimetic specimen, the original bred prolifically. First came the inevitable inversion, a counterpart constructed to embody not catastrophe, but its opposite, the face of a man to whom impossibly fortunate things happen. Plucked from a separate photograph entirely. He was christened, with the network's gift for blunt nomenclature, the lucky one, and was set beside our subject as his cosmic antithesis. Then came the deeper mutation, the one that revealed the format's true nature. The captions detached from the boy entirely. His structure, hope above, ruin below, was applied to politicians, to corporations, to entire nations, to the cosmos itself. The boy had become a grammar. One no longer needed his face to invoke him, one needed only his rhythm, that pitiless little two-beat march from aspiration to annihilation, and the entire world understood precisely whose ghost was being summoned, and what, through all of this, became of Kyle Craven. He did not, as the network half assumes of its mascots, dissolve into pixels. He grew, he married. He took up an honest trade with his hands. He became, in nearly every visible respect, the precise opposite of the eternally doomed boy whose face he can never set down. But the grin followed him into adulthood, the way a sentence follows a man out of a courtroom. He has spoken, in the quieter interviews, of the particular wariness of being a punchline, of being recognized, of being asked to perform the face, of being treated as a public utility rather than a person. Consider the singular strangeness of his condition. He must carry, for the remainder of his natural life, a face that hundreds of millions of strangers associate, warmly, affectionately, relentlessly, with everything that has ever gone wrong in their own lives. He is the universal scapegoat, summoned 1,000 times a day to absorb the small calamities of people he will never meet. It is, I would submit, the loneliest form of fame yet devised to be beloved by all, and known by none. So what, in the end, are we to make of all this? An ordinary boy plays one small prank upon one small camera, and the network repays him by conscripting his face into 10 years of compulsory service as the embodiment of human disaster, enriching strangers, amusing the planet, and asking the boy himself for nothing but his perpetual, frozen, helpless smile. One cannot help but suspect that the durability of the joke owes something to a debt it will never repay. There is no villain here, exactly. There is no master plan. There is only a hopeful boy in a borrowed sweater, vest, grinning at the worst thing that is about to happen. Forever. If this examination has improved your fortunes by even the smallest measure, you may repay the debt by subscribing. A gesture which costs you nothing, and which spares you, at least, from being the next face the internet decides to laugh at.